is a licensed marriage and family therapist who has been in practice for over 25 years. And Deborah, I think your main website is deborahmorehead.com. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
All right. So we're doing something a little unique this time. And what I wanted to do, Deborah, is really tap into your wisdom, because I know you've been working with people for a very long time. I also know you have your own story and your own journey as well, as most of us do who are in this industry.
Yeah.
And I would love for you to share from your experience in working with people, what are a couple of things that you see frequently that hold people back, and probably specifically women, because that's the vast majority of our audience, from finding the one, from finding that love that they desire in their lives?
You know, and I'm just going to say, there's just one thing that I see time and time again. And it was funny, I was actually just talking to somebody about it earlier this week, one of my clients. The biggest thing that holds us back, and women in particular, though it can be men as well, but women in particular, is that we lose ourselves in the process of dating. And let me tell you what I mean by that. And there's a few different ways. One, of course, is at the beginning, when we're even like on the very, very first dates, or we're trying to reach out there, and whether we're doing it online or, we're not doing it online or in person. There's some in-person things happening, and especially hopefully as we go forward in 2021. What happens is it's so funny. I say we lose ourselves. And yet it's a weird way of how we do it, because what we do is we focus too much on ourselves. That sounds funny, and it almost sounds opposite, but we get so inside our own head. We get so inside the part of our brain that is so fearful of rejection, that we're in this place of, oh, are they going to like me? What are they thinking I look like? What are they thinking? Are they thinking I'm smart or not? Or what, we're so caught up in ourselves that we lose ourselves. And that's what I see time and time again. And then if you, and that's definitely at the beginning stages when you're even just dating and trying to find someone. But then once you think, oh, this is a pretty good guy, I like this guy, and you start dating them, and we actually know once we start to have a crush on somebody, and once we start to like somebody, and that's what I was talking about with my client this week, is that we know that there are chemicals that happen in our brain when we are in that crush, I like this person stage. And at that point, again, we're still caught up in, oh, I want them to like me. I don't want them to reject me. We're reading into all sorts of different things that are going on, whether they text, whether they don't, all these different things. And we want them to like us so much that we end up kind of almost, and this is the person I was talking to this week, we almost like find out everything about them and what they like and everything else, and we forget who we are. We're more like, what is it that you want, or how can I make sure to impress you so that you like me, so you don't reject me, and then we forget. We totally forget who we are, what our values are, what's important to us. And so that's really my number one thing that I see time and time again that gets in our way.
Yeah. Oh, Deborah, I'm so glad that you're highlighting this, because, I work mainly with women, a little bit more mature women, 40s, 50s, 60s and beyond. And maybe it's because those of us in that category have enough life experience that we've experienced a few relationships, breakdowns and breakups and things that haven't worked out. But it's a big fear. for so many women out there, and I'm sure you have talked to women about this too, but a lot of women express this fear to me. They fear that they will lose themselves. And yet, in the context of a relationship, and yet what you're describing is kind of an insidious way that this sometimes happens, maybe without us really meaning for it to, or without us even realizing it, right?
Exactly. Yes, that is exactly what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm just going to go back to it's part of how our brain works. It's interesting that we have our hind brain, which is the back part of our brain, that is all about survival, and we are pack animals, and we are social beings, right? And so we don't want to be the one that's left out, because if we're left out, we can get gobbled up, right? Or whatever. So we want to be a part of, and mate selection happens in that part of our brain. It comes from a survival place. So that's why when we're falling in love, lots of chemicals start, just surging during that time. And it makes sense, because if we were totally always in our rational brain when we're dating somebody, we would be reading in to every little thing, and we would go, oh no, and we would be, no, I'm not going to date that person, no, that person, we read into every little thing, and then we'd never mate select. So with all of the chemicals, we get excited, we kind of ignore some of the things that we may be seeing or may not be seeing. And that's kind of why it's called falling in love or blind love, because that is some of the chemical stuff that's going on, which helps us to actually fall in love, which is a good thing. But that's and the person I was just talking to this week, I was talking about, well, first you have to know what your non-negotiables are. You have to know that those giddy feelings and all of those, everything's wonderful. You have to kind of know that's what's going on. And you have to do a dance between the chemical induced falling in love part of us, and let me pull back and go from my rational brain and trust your intuition and make sure you don't lose all of the stuff that was going on in your life before you started dating, the people and the activities, so that you can actually do a better job of evaluating this person when you are dating them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And that's not always the easiest thing to do. It really isn't, because I think these chemicals can be really strong, the chemicals you're talking about. And there's some instinctual stuff going on if we're making those decisions from the survival part of our brain. And then also when we get caught up in the chemistry, the excitement, that's part of the chemicals, I guess. But, that can kind of blind us to maybe some other things that we would otherwise see. It's like there's this saying that says, if you're looking at someone through rose-colored glasses, the red flags just look like flags. You can't see the color of those flags because you've already
Right.
got the color filtering kind of glasses. And I think that, one of the things to remember in this context is that one of the things that typically attracts someone to us and vice versa is who they are as an individual. So if we start losing our individuality, whether that be we put all of our interests and passions on hold, we start ignoring all of our friends or neglecting all of our other relationships or whatever, we do start to lose that sense of self and that connection with the other things that lit us up, made us happy, and probably helped attract this person into our lives if they're a healthy person for us to have in our lives.
What we have to do once you're starting to date, and then you need to control yourself. So that example, that idea of he didn't text me, blah, blah, right? We start to get a little bit crazy in our mind. We go into the protecting, and then the problem is we have to get control of ourselves first so that we don't just react to whatever are those little tiny things. Because if we react, it's playing these weird games, and we kind of get all the men get confused, and then we're playing stuff inside our head. So we really have to make sure we control our thoughts. It's not that you're not going to have those thoughts, but you don't want to just react from those thoughts, because you're reading inaccurately, probably. I mean, so he was late at showing up, or he didn't text you when you thought he was going to text you. You don't want to get into weird reactive game playing. You want to just be able to then speak up for yourself. So in some cases, you may just kind of go, okay, this was the first time. It's not a big deal. Let me just let it go. But if you start to see, hey, he says he's going to show up at this time and he doesn't, or he says he's going to text me to let me know his schedule and he doesn't, and it's happened a few times, then you have to speak up for yourself. But the problem is, because we don't control our brain at those moments, the way we speak up is very ineffective. We criticize, we say something negative. And as long as we do that, it's actually going to make the whole situation even worse. And you're not really going back to losing yourself, you're not being the person that you know you can be. You're not being your best self. You're just reacting. So, the way you want to speak up for yourself is not a criticism, but it's a clean request. And the request, it's funny, I do trauma work with children all the time. And at the end of the work with the children, one of the most important things, because we know that when we know that the research shows that people who have been were victims in their childhood, oftentimes go on and they are re-victimized in various situations in their adult life. And so, luckily, when people bring the kids into me and I'm able to help them early on, I teach at the end of doing the trauma work, I teach them how to speak up, because when you're a victim, you learn that you don't have any say-so. And when you're a kid, you definitely don't feel like you have a say-so. So I teach them, I have them practice in my office, loud no's. We kind of role play around, stranger danger stuff, and have them speak loud and say no, and, what they would do. But then I teach them how to speak up and request for what they need. And there's basically, with the little kids, there's 2 points. And I teach this, and I'm finding myself lately teaching it with the adults too, because we are so bad at doing this. The first point is, I feel. We just describe what we feel. And the second point is what I need. Right? Now, there's a fancier I statement that includes more points. I feel because I describe my perspective. But that just getting out, I feel, I need. So the example of the texting is, I felt disappointed. And I will say that, when you didn't text, when you said you were going to, what I need in the future is that if you tell me you're going to text at a certain time, to please make sure to text me. It's just, I feel I need. With little kids, it's just, I teach them, I'm feeling scared. I need a hug. I'm feeling upset. I need to go to my room. I'm feeling frustrated. I need you to stop talking for a minute. Just the very, very simple things. And we're so bad at it. But you do the same thing in a relationship. You speak up for yourself.
Yeah, I think this is so powerful, because I think this is another way that people often lose themselves in a relationship, is letting those boundaries collapse. Yeah. And I think in dating that happens most often, first of all, when we really like someone, because like you said earlier on, we want them to like us. We're really focused on them liking us. We're going into that stuff of thinking about, does he like me? Does he like how I look? Da, da, da. We can just get into this like crazy analysis stuff, and we can collapse our boundaries because we think we have to in order to keep him liking us.
Yeah.
And then the other way we can collapse our boundaries is when someone, maybe it's not as healthy of a connection, and someone is pressuring us to collapse our boundaries. And I think this is a real fear for a lot of women, that they're going to lose themselves in the context of a relationship in this way or in some of the other ways we've been talking about. And I just think having awareness around this and remembering that we have a say in this, we have having an awareness and being conscious of what's going on when we're in a dating situation, we have a lot of power that I think sometimes we forget.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we get back into that fear of, losing them, or what they're going to think about us, or whatever else, or, do they like me? I often, in the beginning dating, I'll talk to the women I work with about making sure that they, before they even go in on the date, they do things that really ground themselves. You got to remind yourself of who you are and all the wonderful things about yourself, because you're the one that's bringing that in, and to really think from a perspective of, I am evaluating them, not the other way around. Now they are evaluating too, but you are more in an empowered place when you go, I am evaluating them. This is who I am. This is what I stand for. These are my values, my beliefs. And does this person fit into all of that?
Yeah, Deborah, I think that's why it's so important what you brought up earlier, this idea of really knowing who you are. Knowing who you are, what you bring to the table. I'm always focusing with my clients, like you are, on helping them to return to that place of being centered in knowing their own value.
Yes.
No matter what is or isn't happening with any other man, with a man or any other outside factor, if they can stay centered in their own value and make their decisions and choices from that place, that's very empowering.
Yeah. And that's where, kind of what I was, that idea of you've got to be evaluating them when, and in that, exactly the connection you made, Michelle, and when you know yourself, when you know your value, when you know who you are. I mean, we all have our strengths and our weaknesses, right? That we bring into relationships. But when you know yourself in those ways, then really that's the whole point, is then you don't have to settle for anything less than what you deserve. And that's the place that we just want to get you. You do not have to settle for anything less.
Absolutely. So coming full circle here, if one of the biggest things that you see that keeps people from finding love or attracting love is them kind of losing themselves or losing their sense of self in a relationship, what are some of your final recap points or last words of advice that you want to leave people with here?
I would say three things. Yeah, and it kind of fits with what I'm saying, but at the bottom line, there's lots of pieces to know yourself, but do know what your non-negotiables are. What are those breaking, must-haves, not willing to have? You've got to know those, because that helps you to more quickly evaluate, and it helps you to stay connected to yourself. So you just have to do that. And the second piece is just don't react, to your crazy thoughts about, him and what happened or whatever else, or does he like me? Breathe. Breathing keeps you in your integrated brain. Your brain is actually working better, and you calm yourself down. So breathe and don't react. And then don't settle. Speak up. The ability to speak up is part of what helps you to evaluate, because if I don't speak up in a situation, then I'm not learning anything about you, right? Because if I say, no, I don't want to do that, or I feel uncomfortable when, I get to learn about your character based off of how you respond to that.
Oh, that's such a good point right there. Because if we're not able to speak up, if we're not able to say, I liked the simplicity of how you described it, I feel, I need, we're we're not able to speak up in those ways, we don't get to see how that other person responds and whether or not they're the kind of individual that is caring, that has a concern for what your needs are, who wants to work with you to create a healthy, happy relationship, kind of that win-win, and something that's going to work for both people. But we can't expect, I've had so many men say to me, please don't expect us to be mind readers. Please don't expect us to know what it is you want. And yet so often that's a part of this losing ourselves thing. We're afraid to speak up because we're afraid, oh my goodness, if I speak up, it's going to be too much, or he's not going to be willing to do it or whatever. But good to find out, right?
Yes, absolutely. And that's the most important thing.
And then I like the nuanced touch that you have on that too, to not do it in a reactive way. That, not just do it in a, well, fine, he didn't text me, I'm just gonna show him, blah, blah, blah. Like you said, then we kind of get into the game playing kind of thing, which no one really wants.
Yeah. And that, it's interesting because that's what automatically starts to bring out the worst in both of us when we start to do that. So not reacting becomes really, really important.
Right. So Deborah, this has been really a great conversation. I really love that you've highlighted this aspect of relationships, because I think it's so important. And as I said earlier, I hear this from so many women, and these are strong, independent, successful women, mature women, and they're still saying, I'm so afraid I'm going to lose myself in the context of a relationship. And so I love that you brought out some real tangible tools that we can work with to really help us in this regard. Thank you so much again for joining me and for being so generous.
You are very welcome. Thank you for having me. And just wish, I'm so excited that you're doing this. It's a good way to start a new year and, kind of be thinking and going in positive directions.
Absolutely. I think we all need kind of that new breath of fresh air and kind of a new start, a little bit of a reset.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
So Thanks again, Deborah, and thanks again to everybody who's out there watching. We really appreciate your participation and really hope that you find some inspiration and encouragement on your journey to love. All right. We hope you'll join us for more. Take care. Bye-bye for now.